Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another episode of Reaction Time. I am joined by Steven and Eric as always. Steven, how many episodes are we up to?
Oh, that's a loaded question. I don't know.
A number?
A
It feels
number.
like a lot. It feels like we've been doing this for a hot minute.
I'm gonna call
We
for a
made it
fact check.
through.
Let me look.
While
Jeez.
Steven fact checks, I just want to acknowledge we made it through an entire split, including the lock-in tournament and LCS and all that, and we've been doing this for like what 3 months now. So we've
Look at
made some
us.
progress.
Look at us.
Look at us.
This
Who
is
could have thought?
episode 17.
17, yeah, that's like a real number of episodes. We've been
Yeah.
trying a little
We've
bit.
almost have enough content to listen to an entire 24-hour day.
Look at us doing the hard work for you, the listeners. So with that, we are going to get started. And to start with, I'm going to give you guys, the loyal listeners, an outline of our plan for the next 3 weeks. We are going to do 3-week releases in a row, each of the next 3 Wednesday nights for recordings. You might catch it on Thursday morning. Because of the kind scheduling that the Big Four regions have given to us, we can dedicate episodes more fully focused to them. So this week we're going to talk about LCS playoffs, since they do kick off this weekend, and the mid-season showdown, is that what they're calling it, since it's not the end of a split anymore because of how they did that, but they still need to have a tournament to send somebody to MSI. So we're going to talk about the mid-season showdown. That's going to be this week's focus. Next week, we're going to talk about the LEC playoffs because they don't start this weekend. They start next weekend. But a hat tip to the 6 teams that have clinched playoffs in the LEC: G2, Rogue, Mad Lions, Schalke, Fnatic, and SK Gaming. Solid season from everybody. Eric, do you have any thoughts on RIP Excel?
It's that 1 week when they decided to play early game for no reason and got wrecked. That's all it was. Should have.
Steven, do you have any thoughts on RIP Misfits?
Everybody was within 1 or 2 games of getting into playoffs. Like, it's really good for the culture over there. But next split, you gotta win every game.
And it may require some roster changes to do that. I'm sure we'll talk about that in more detail on later dates, because it's kind of a long time until the summer split. So we'll have some content fill to do on that. We're also gonna, the week after that, the LPL and LCK are both still in their regular season through March 28th, Sunday, March 28th. So 2 weeks from now, on March 31st, we're going to do an episode about LPL and LCK playoffs. And therefore, we're going to also hat tip that there are several teams that have clinched in there. 7 teams have clinched in China and 5 have clinched in Korea. There's still a lot to be determined for seeding in both of those. The 2nd, 3rd, and 4th seeds are very close in the LCK. And everything from 2 through 7 in China is up for grabs. But hat tips in the LPL to Royal Never Give Up, leading the league at 11-2. EDG, Top Esports, Team WE, Fun Plus Phoenix, Rare Atom, and JDG, all of whom have clinched and locked playoff spots for the spring split. And in the LCK, Damwon Kia, Genji, Hanwha Life, Dragon X, DRX, and T1 have all locked playoff spots as well, with 3 games to go in the league, partially because the race for the 6th seed in the LCK is kind of tragic, but no team in the LCK has been eliminated from playoffs yet, which I don't think no other of the Big Four regions can say at this point, because the bottom 5 teams in the LCK are all within 1 game of each other. KT, Nongshim, Fredit Brion, Live Sandbox, and Afrika Freaks are all still in range of the 6th seed for the playoffs. So that's going to be a fascinating watch over the next 2 weeks to see how that shakes out for the last seed. Suffice to say, the 6th seed in the LCK is going to go in at a significant disadvantage, but it's going to be fun to watch. Shout out to Rare Atom. They won one of the big games I said they were going to win, and then lost to bottom feeding teams. Anyway. Whoops.
It'd be like
with
that
that
sometimes.
said, yeah, these things, they do tend to happen. With that said, we will look at those in more detail in the upcoming weeks, but today we are here to talk about North American League of Legends, our God-given right and the thing that we probably should know the most about since we live here. So the playoff bracket for the LCS is also locked with C9, TSM, Team Liquid, 100 Thieves, Dignitas, and Evil Geniuses being the 6 teams to make it to playoffs. I think the only thing in question going into Sunday's games in the LCS was seeding in the playoffs, because IMT finished a good 3 games back of the 6th seed. So it was pretty clear who the 6 that were going to make it were. I know Steven was going to go back and check our predictions for the year. I think we got 5 of 6 right for the most part. I think we overrated FlyQuest in our preseason expectations and underrated Dignitas.
Correct.
And that's about the only change from what actually happened for this top 6.
And that's pretty consistent with most reviews of the league, where people didn't think this Dignitas roster would come together. They thought it would explode like most Dardoch rosters. And instead, Dardoch is exploding on the Rift. So they managed to earn this spot, which is pretty cool. FlyQuest also imploded, it looks like. It's been the first fail of a... This is like the first time a C9 Academy transfer team hasn't made it to playoffs in their first split, which is kind of a shocker, which is a strange thing to say when you look at Diamond and Paula Fox coming in with 0 experience.
And let's just real briefly before we dig into the meat of the playoffs, any thoughts on the 4 teams that we won't see again for another 3 months? Immortals, FlyQuest, CLG, and Golden Guardians. I know there's been a lot of discussion about the development of Golden Guardians and their top side Niles having arguably the worst split any non-support player has had in terms of KDA in the history of the LCS, and coming from where he came from, with he and Iconic coming directly from Collegiate, that is something that needs to be noted. But Steven, where do you want to start with the 4 eliminated teams?
CLG pulling it together at the end is wild to me. And I don't know how they pulled these wins off at the end. It's really shocking to me. And if anyone offers any explanation, I would love to hear it.
Eric? You have CLG thoughts for us?
Well, I do think that a lot of these players are hungry and still very driven. And they're very invested in the game. So say what you will about Broxa or Wild Turtle or Pobelter for results, but these are players who have put years and years of effort in and are pretty untiltable, all things considered. Turtle has had some massive swings in fate and continues to step back up to the plate every team, which is really impressive when you look at leaving TSM and then his journey to end up on FlyQuest and then now on CLG, and so I'm pretty impressed with that. I'm blanking on something that I had right now. One of the other things that I think is really important with gosh, I need to go back to... I want to go back and find this number. So, not a number, but... So one of the other things that I appreciate about this roster is I think that Turtle reigns in Smoothie in some ways. Smoothie's big critique is always, from people, has been he over-communicates and muddles comms. But he's always had the capacity of playing at the highest level since he was on the C9 roster that ran the whole distance. So this isn't a team without veteran caliber, without some real star talent, and so them showing up to me is in some games towards the end is not as shocking as it should seem. I think it more speaks to how little some of the other development teams grew. Because remember that CLG wasn't supposed to be one of these development rosters. It was one of the weird ones we put in the weird bucket of this isn't a development roster, but it's a veteran roster that we don't think is as good to compete at the high level. And they ended up fitting into that role, even with those wins at the end. And so to me, I'd more look at FlyQuest, which imploded, as well as Golden Guardians and Immortals and these other rosters at the bottom, which didn't adapt or grow potentially as much as what we were looking for.
A thing that I think needs to start the CLG discussion is we've played 18 games so far in this regular season of League of Legends. There's a lot more to play, and from the point that they thought they would be at, is it 36 more games that we're getting in this regular season, or just 18 more in Summer Split? I feel like it's double the games in Summer Split.
There's a lot.
Or it's time and a half. That's what it is. It's 27 more games. So CLG, after the horrific start they had to the season, finishes 5 games down on EG for the 6th seed as it stands. And if I remember right, do 8 teams make playoffs at the end of the year?
8 teams make it.
They're only 1 game behind FlyQuest for the 8th spot. With those things said, they don't have a giant gap to make up in that. The other thing that I think is really important to acknowledge is that they did have horrific roster problems to start the season, which I think is a huge part of why they started as badly as they did. Trivia for you. Do you guys know what Pobelter's record this split is as it stands?
It's probably really good.
Isn't it 4-1?
It's 4-5. He's played more than you think he has.
Yeah.
But they finished the split going 4-3 over their last 7 games. And like Pobelter and Broxa both did not start the split with the team, are both obvious upgrades over Griffin and RJS, and provided competence, as you would expect for players who both have been around high-level professional League of Legends for a really long time at this point. So, like, CLG finishes the split with 2 losses, one of which to Golden Guardians, which feels pretty bad. But they're in a place where I think they can feel as good as any of these bottom 4 teams is about the trajectory of their roster going into the second half of the split.
Yeah, I really think that if they don't bench Pobelter and they let Broxa play, they could easily knock off an EG or a Dignitas, which I think has the same kind of combustion on their roster to make this a better playoff run in the summer split.
It's a point that I think I made in January when we had the rosters first to break down. The least professionally experienced player on this CLG roster is Finn. And that's a huge statement compared to some of the teams that are going out in the LCS. And you wonder if that's going to start to show more over time, or if the rookies are going to start to adjust better to the league, which obviously Immortals and FlyQuest, all 3 of these other bottom 3 teams have significant rookies that are playing full time for their teams. It's something to be determined. Does the veteran experience of the CLG team pay off as much as it kind of has started to look like it has to this point? So, any good thoughts on the other bottom 3 teams? We talked a lot about CLG, which I wasn't expecting, but I'm down with it.
I think they're the most interesting. Aside from maybe mentioning FlyQuest's new support player, they've brought over Dreams.
Swapped in Dreams, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that was a huge move for them because it felt like they were just slightly too young in comms was a part of their issue with Diamond in that roster, or were having some kind of communication issues for how to approach the map. So it ended up being Jose Dioto on solo missions, and then their lanes just not building substantial advantages, and then them falling apart. So I do really like that support swap in the short term for getting a little bit more veterancy. Also, somebody who's very familiar with miracle runs can't be a bad thing. So it made a lot of sense with what I was seeing from them on the Rift, because this team still has some very solid laners who can make plays. They also, I feel, got really wrecked by this meta that's evolved with control mages mid and tanks top. Like, you want to see Licorice and Polyfox have a chance for skill expression in these matchups. So instead, we're in this like PoE meta, and that's not where this team is meant to be or meant to excel.
And like Dreams, just in case anybody watching doesn't know this, is a playoff experienced LEC support. Like, his teams made playoffs 2 of the 4 splits he played in the LEC on SK and Schalke, including the miracle run that Eric referred to in summer 2020. So swapping him in for Diamond is just a monumental experience upgrade. And it was always the question with the Dreams signing when FlyQuest made this for their academy team is, why is this player sitting in NA Academy? And the answer probably always was because this is the role we want a backup plan for. And you wondered if they would do it this early. It looked like they needed to, and it looks like the right move at this point.
I think a lot of what they were going for with this like excruciating amount of young talent is that on paper has the highest skill ceiling. So when you try to let it flourish and grow, but it doesn't pan out, to have this contingency plan of let's bring in some experience in hopefully comms, which it sounds like where they need it the most. You have that ability to cultivate a large roster of young talent to make them really good. And going into this was a rebuilding year for FlyQuest. They did well for what they were predicted to do, and they got hopefully good paychecks for those players that they traded, and they were going to build up a lot of young talent to raise the skill ceiling of the league. I hope they can do that with some really vocal talent in this role.
And let us just acknowledge, like, teams having veteran backups for some rookie talent is not exactly a new concept, even when the rookies are more experienced, like a Fudge, for example, who's done his time in Academy, which we've talked about plenty on previous episodes. C9 Academy's top laner is Darshan. If Fudge at any point has problems in form, you wonder if they'll give that a try. I'm not saying they should or would, but he's right there.
And he's still doing really well in Academy, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, he's still taking names.
Yep.
Same thing with like the other... Who was the other player that came to mind that I looked up before I looked up Darshan?
Haunter? Or...
It was... Golden Guardians have Tally as their Academy top laner, who... long-time Oceanic Pro top laner. Tons of experience, Worlds experience. You wonder if they decide to go away from trying to get Niles and Iconic to adjust to the skill level of the LCS, if they would put in Tally. Because that...
We can talk about this more maybe when we get to like our episode talking about Proving Grounds, because I've watched about 20 games of Golden Guardians Academy in the past 2 weeks. So I have thoughts about things that org can do in the future. But yeah, there is definitely options they have, because they also have, I believe, Bobip's on TSM Academy. Never mind. But they have a pretty solid backup whole roster down there.
Yep.
And it would be an option.
Something I think we're going to see more roster sauce as we go into summer. So there, we've talked a good bit about everybody except Immortals. Good job, Immortals. You did okay enough. That's my only Immortal thoughts. Good job, Revenge. You did pretty well. All right, playoffs. 6 playoff teams. Matchups. The opening delicious matchup of C9 100 Thieves, I think, is the first matchup of playoffs, if I remember correctly. And that is a spicy kickoff to the experience. Unless it's TLTSM, which is just as spicy as the kickoff. So let's start there. Both very good matchups, both full of some storylines to hit on. Steven, since TLTSM is up first, I'll start with you.
TL easy clap.
Scared?
No,
Are you scared?
not of TSM. If it was TL Cloud9, I would have some issue, but nah, like TSM can't do anything to TL. It's an easy win. Hooney's gonna int into Alfari. It's gonna be GG. Jensen's. They're letting Jensen play whatever he wants, which I think is awesome. And so, what is Power of Evil gonna do? Nothing. Lose. He's gonna pick his ear and lose. So
Eric, you've already mentioned how well the meta fits Power of Evil right now and how well he's playing. Would you like to respond?
So it's awkward because I also favor TL in this matchup. But like it is definitely a PoE meta. So champion picks are not going to be TSM's problem in this series. What I believe I believe that they'll have other problems. Also, if we're talking about mid laners who know what to do into mid Viger, I put PoE high on this list of not like letting that slide for the nonsense. Also, like the Ari build that he went for, I don't see either of those being things you want to play against PoE. That seems like great cheese for when you're up against Ryoma or like maybe Perks, but I would not test PoE on those champions. That seems like an easy way to like throw away what I think is an overwhelming map advantage in your favor as far as how you want to approach the game. Like so many of TSM's wins come from their opponent not having macro or knowing what to do on the map. What was my other? No, I had two. Or just skill checking, raw across roles, where they have these like really star-studded, talented players who can just like outlane you in what they're doing on the map, and like that's not going to work against TL. Like Huni versus Alfari in top lane is not a TSM favored matchup, especially with Santorin supplying any amount of jungle pressure. And then like TL is one of the teams I trust not to fall for like the multi-global comps that TSM uses as a crutch when they have to figure out how to win games. And like that's kind of where I see this falling is like as long as TL has done their homework and doesn't fall for like these tricks that are meant to like allow TSM to succeed just off of like raw experience, they should have this series.
Eric, where do you think the gap is most noticeable on the map in this series?
So it's weird. I have to say top lane. I definitely think that Alfari versus Huni is like the biggest one as far as like in lane performance. Huni has had some sick team fights so far in LCS. His Gnar seems on form. He hasn't like drafted pure cheese as much as he did in his Immortals Huni days. But like as far as like lane advantages, I'm expecting topside to favor TL. I could mention bot side of the map because of things, but like it's weird because I'm very lukewarm on tactical just spamming Tristana to like medium success. Did you have like a specific stat line you were looking for one of these?
No, not really. I just wanted to see where that vibe took you.
Hooney is gonna get clapped in lane. I'm gonna take the easy pickup.
I will push back on that. We saw this matchup twice in the regular season. It went 1-1. In both games, top lane CS was within 3.
Mm-hmm.
Even in the one in which TSM got slammed, top lane CS was within 3. And I believe I don't know how it. So it was Camille Gnar with Huni and Gnar in the first matchup. That was the early 1-11-1 where TL just stomped him. That appears to have mostly been in the bot lane.
Yeah, that was a very bot focus game.
And in the TSM win, it was Gnar against Kennen, and top lane was not a factor in the game at all. That game was Power of Evil going really, really big on Azir. Oh,
mainly solved in team fights. Yeah. PoE has been looking insane.
Like, I am concerned that top lane isn't going to be a factor on the map as a whole. If I was going to respond to Eric's point about top lane being a gap point, because from what we've seen, the two games that we've seen, things have broken away from top lane. It hasn't really been a factor in the game, and that's not good for Team Liquid because it is an advantage area. So, is it something you choose to game plan around? Do you send Santorin up there and just make him live up there? See what happens?
Yes.
Get some favorable back timings like Core JJ roam, like unlock Core JJ on the map. Take
Santorin,
advantage of
Core JJ, Jensen, and Alfari are now the top laners for Team Liquid. And you just farm Huni for big golds, because if he is keeping that farm advantage close, he is still worth something when you kill him.
Man, I just I'm looking through the stat lines from these two games, and Jensen got slammed in this Azir Zoe game.
Yeah, he really did.
Yeah, yeah. That's why they're letting him play other things. Like, just not that.
To be fair, that was in the specifically, I believe before they nerfed Azir's damage output in early game by 10 per auto. So it was when Azir was giga busted. It's slightly less bad now, but it still is not Also, Zoe's so not a Jensen champion. This is the other thing is I think that TL has tried out some things with pick ban. Specifically, it looks to me aiming for champ diversity for going into playoffs. They want to be able to showcase a multiple of champions in each role across this map to try and make things work. And I get it, but if they try these champions and just look like trash on them, it doesn't create that huge benefit that they could have had. If he had won on Zoe and on Viger, this would be a much different story as we're going into playoffs. But instead, he's lost on these champions. So to me, I think as TSM, you just ban them meta, and you just try and play meta, and then you make them prove that they've done their homework.
And I actually apologize. One of those two games was from lock-in. So there was actually another game this split, which was the most recent one, which TSM also won. And Power of Evil also stomped lane. It was into Seraphine. So the game had a very different setup, and as I look at the gold graphic, kind of looks like a thrown lead and better team fighting from TSM to me. But Power of Evil is up at the end of this game by 80 CS. Getting to play a control mage. It's interesting how that has happened again and again.
It's a really good PoE meta. So, just
hold on.
I
want to call some shenanigans. Are we sure Jensen lost on Vigar?
Did he actually win that game?
He actually won that game, so I want my
apologies.
apologies.
Three times,
it doesn't matter. It's Vigar.
I was I thought for sure they lost that. Never mind.
I was feverishly checking.
I was watching him get wrecked in the early game, so I just assumed that they lost.
You can't dog on my boy like that.
So I and this is what I'm coming to, because you boys have both come out in favor of TL, and I think that's understandable. I'm taking TSM. I hate that I'm saying that, but I'm taking TSM.
It's hard to be wrong, man.
Now, this is where I break from all analytical processing in my brain, and I go back to the fact that we are in the dankest of possible timelines, right? So you have to remember there's a set pattern for how this works, which is TSM's going to lose to TL here, get knocked into the losers bracket, and then they're going to sweep their way through the losers bracket and end up playing C9 in the final after beating TL on the reverse side. That's my bracket, by the way, or my pool for a sleeper, is that TSM loses this one, but then wins on the flip side and ends up in the final against C9. Because that's the only way this goes. There is no, if we look at reality as predestined, as there is a set course for this, and it's two memes, and that is the end result of reality. TSM loses this one.
TL having to go to losers first round is way funnier. I'm picking TSM 3-1. Boom.
Okay.
False.
All right.
It's legal.
What's your call?
Oh, TL, easy
By
call.
what? What's the score? By TL and how many?
Oh,
Call it.
3-2. It has to go to all five because views.
TL and 5. Eric, call it.
I think it's a 3-0 either way, and I'm siding with TL.
So we have 3 different numbers of games, which I like, and both of the different results, which
Someone
I like.
will be right.
Someone will at least be close.
Yeah, the 3-2 TSM option is still on the table. So
I'm saying 3-1 TSM. I think they've got this. I hate. Why is Power People on my least favorite team ever? Oh, makes me sad.
Jat learned, don't tell exactly Jensen what to play, and let him figure it out. He's got the contract for long term. He can take PoE, not a problem.
Yep. Okay. Let's talk about Hunter Thief C9. I'm not sure we're going to pick different answers in this one. Eric, talk about Ryoma.
So since we are in PoE meta, Ryoma is a better mid laner than Damonte.
I agree.
And there have been episodes from like Tim on Oracle's Elixir and other people who talk about laning stats and like do more of this analysis. The big problem with Ryoma last season was always like was that he could only play control mages. Now we are in a meta where all you want to play is control mages. This is fine, and he's been team fighting well with this team, which is one of the other things I was on the lookout for. So I definitely think that starting him over Damonte in this makes it like is the right call as far as like what you're trying to do in this meta. Now, if they wanted to break meta, I actually feel like starting Damonte and just like saying, forget this might be a more solid option against some of these teams. Just because like I think they're gonna have a problem against some of the big three with the way this is looking right now. But like Ryoma definitely seems like the option just with this meta, with like if you like eye test them in game and like what their team is doing on the map. I side this way.
Steven, make the case for your boy.
So you say control mages. Why would you take Tanner, Damonte, Time out of your roster and then play Twisted Fate? I think the game was remade and it doesn't matter, but at the same time, he has no wins on the control mages that he's supposed to be brought into play. I believe he's only won on... Okay, he won one on Orianna. He lost on Azir, which is why you're putting your control player on there and not my boy Tanner. And you looked the best on global comps, which still work. Just play your global comps. Put Tanner in, Damonte, Time. He'll learn Orianna. He's fine on Orianna. You have Twisted Fate. He'll figure it out. Don't shake your head. He'll figure out Orianna. He'll get the paycheck.
Well, we're not going to get to know if he'll figure them out or not because they're not making that call. And you're right. I was baffled when they played TF. Like, why would you sub out Damonte and then pick TF after you were like trying to have him play these control mages and we're losing? Like, just fix your draft. And but like this, like a part of the problem with like only being able to play globals is they can just ban TF because when he was on Galio, they were getting stomped in like the early half of the split. And like having that much of a weakness in pick ban when there are so many OPs around in this meta is very dangerous. I'm like, I don't know, like,
but it's still
I can definitely agree that I appreciate rosters with like an active or aggressive mid laner more than a passive one, but with just the way this meta works, it makes sense. Now, like, I still think they're going to get 3-0'd here by C9 because of mid diff either one of them. So like it doesn't really like shake how I'm calling this one iota which one of them it is, but they're getting 3-0'd.
So okay.
Wait, I want to answer. Mid diff doesn't matter if you're not in the mid lane. So put in Tanner and get him the fuck out of mid lane into the other lanes.
And then was down like 50 CS to Perks
Who
at like
cares?
15 minutes, and then like Perks hard carried the entire game. Like,
But you take what we've learned and how you deal with Perks, and you take 5 people and you kill Perks, and then they lose. So roam for the first 15 minutes of the game, and then 5-man kill Perks, win game. It's easy. Put me in.
Okay, I'm gonna make points on both sides here a little bit, but the serious point is definitely with Eric here. Is it a coincidence that the last game Demonte played in the LCS is a 0-5-2 Azir game against C9? I don't think that is a coincidence in any way.
Ban is here. Put it Tanner. Easy.
The point that I will make in favor of Demonte is Demonte has been known to have some more interesting champion picks in the history. Hasn't shown it that much this split, other than one or two mid set games back when that was a little more spicy. I think that was were those both in lock-in? No, one was early in spring. You play Demonte if you want to bait Perks into trying to pick something dumb. Because that's how you eliminate the mid diff, is by trying to get Perks to do something dumb. Because he will, and you know he will. We all know he will. Even in playoffs, he'll pick something to try and flex on them. And it often doesn't work when he does that. So if you play Demonte, that's what you're going for, is you want a weird matchup in the mid lane that you can maybe tilt. It might not go your way, but it's a chance.
Can't you swap mid laners in the best of 5 here?
You could.
You could! Like, completely throw off Cloud9. They're not going to swap anyone. You pull in Tanner with some cheddar cheese, the sharpest cheese you can find. Bait out the mid diff, and then put in Rielma with the control mage to finish it out. Easy.
Well, and I will shout out, we talked about Rielma's control mage thing. The fact that he... Two of these last 4 games against bottom non-playoff teams, but were big fat Silas dubs with big performances. That is an interesting pick going into this matchup, because I don't think many people are playing the Silas, and that what he showed as like, I know how to play this pick and I can do really well on it, which is interesting.
It's also a great meta for Silas with the prevalence of Gnar top lane as well as Scion. So like, there's plenty of like some high value team fight engage ultimates that do some really disgusting things. Magnetic Storm from Rel being another example of like great things to put onto your like physical range mage who has AP scaling.
But I also agree with Eric's general point. It's going to be outskill in the mid lane either way, and it's going to be outskill everywhere else to do. I love FBI to death, but man, I don't see it.
This is one of Sven's better splits, which is always scary when we talk about somebody with that much skill and experience. Like, if he looks on form and it's not an Ezreal meta, like, this is solid for what we can expect.
100 T's actual win condition is almost the same as I would have said TL's is. Camp Fudge. Camp Fudge. Get someday a favorable matchup and camp top lane. Just do it.
Like, actually play around top lane for once, and I don't think they're going to do it, which is
they're not going to do
really
it.
sad.
They're absolutely not going to do it.
Which you could do with a global comp.
That is where they have a win. That is where they have a winning matchup in terms of player skill. Period. But it's 3-0 C9.
Oh.
Sorry.
I think C9 wants the easy loser bracket. I'm going to say 3-2, 100 Thieves. Easy. Easy call.
All right. Fair enough.
There's your spice.
That's fair. So then I haven't yet found, even one of you two might have this and I don't. How does the losers bracket shake out? Is it specific matchups meet each team, or is it by seeds?
I think there's reseeding how it played out for me is that with 100 Thieves losing, they play against
Should be Dig, I would think.
Dig, yeah, and then it was TSM versus EG.
So I know
don't know.
if it goes chalk and TL and C9 win, it should be 100 Thieves Dig, and then TSM EG.
Yeah.
In the losers first round of the losers bracket. If it doesn't, I'm less sure how it goes. Like in my scenario where I have TL beating, where I have a TSM beating TL, I assume TL still would get to I think it must be, unless C9 loses the 2-3 game plays against EG. So let's assume, since majority of us said, you two said TL would win, two of us said C9 will win. Let's assume those matchups. What do we think about TSM EG?
I think it's very TSM favored, as far as how things go. Because as usual, the way EG wins games is playoffs impact and Jizuke playing like one of his pocket picks, and his pocket picks are good right now. But like, I don't know if they're going to be able to get the majority of games in a best of 5, like with positive Jizuke, as well as like the high priority of Gnar in that matchup means that Impact won't get it for free every game. That's the other big thing, because like playoffs impact on Gnar is like how he has
an extremely known quantity.
Yeah. So like they do have odds in that series, but like with PoE's current form, as well as with how good their team fighting looks right now, I think that TSM can pull out an edge in this.
Steven, agree?
Yeah, I do think it's the most interesting matchup if we can get it, but their win conditions are very similar, and where they excel is very similar. Despite like coin flip positive Jizuke just like memeing on kids on Echo, like watching that top lane and like who's gonna emerge victorious and then turn the team fights, and I think I think just based on coin flip Jizuke, like you have to give it to TSM. Like PoE is consistent. You have to give him that, and he has the favorable meta picks, where Jizuke has the favorable off meta picks, and so you have to give it to the meta in the best of 5.
Well, my problem with EG, and this is like, as someone who's been cheering for them this year, the problem against EG is you ban Ryze, Gnar, and a jungle pick, and pick a second jungle, and then what do? Like,
Cry.
Jizuke's best champion has been Ryze this split, which is not a surprise. That he's a known Ryze player. He's one of the only people who's playing it consistently right now, and like that's you just ban it. Like, why would you let him do that? You can let through the Echo. He's lost on the Echo. We know this. I wouldn't let through the Ryze ever. Like,
I actually kind of almost have the opposite take, where it's
really?
I think that TSM can beat Jizuke on Ryze the majority of games, versus the Echo, which is more coin flip. So I would like ban the coin flip and then just beat them straight up fist fight by like out team fighting them. Because like the problem that like I was noticing with his Ryze games is that like it's meant to allow Svenskeren to get more onus in the game, where it's like you don't gank for that lane, you farm up on Ryze, you hit 6, and then you start like using it to back up Svenskeren as he's like invading on Hecarim or whatever. And so this is like still opting in for this like heavy skirmish style where you're sitting back and just farming in mid lane. And like I don't like that as far as like what it ends up being as far as like how the game plays. And I don't know. I think TSM would be prepared for that a lot better than like, you know, than versus the Echo games, where it's like if you leave Echo up and then like Ignar roams mid once, blows flash on PoE, and then like Jizuke uses that to start turret diving at 6, like that's a very different game state to play in and have to deal with. But I could be wrong. Like the other thing is that the Echo pick is really good into Syndra. That's like what it's meant for.
Yep.
And so like if you just don't end up in a position where you're picking Syndra because like the rest of PoE's champion pool is up, like who cares? I don't know. Like that's a part of what I meant by I just don't think it's deep enough. Like they could ban it like you called out. I think they can just straight up beat it. There's not many options.
There hasn't been a ton of mid Nocturne, right? There's only been the one game in the LEC.
LCS, I think there's been one. I think there were at least. Well, okay, sorry, I'm thinking of. All right, I can't count the Mad Lions game, right? I can't count that. It might have been 2. There was like
kind of interesting. Now, like the more that I think about it, it's like if you can't get Rise, but you do get like a Lilia Nocturne kind of setup, that would be
I don't
funny.
think he's gonna play Nocturne.
No,
it's not really. He likes playing these assassins who he can get kills with in lane and
in lane, yeah.
build a lane advantage, and apply pressure there. And like Nocturne is not actually really as good at like pressure in your lane. It's about like the team fight power. I'm also really not like, as somebody who's played a non-zero amount of mid Nocturne, like this tank, like off tank build, like really saddens me for that pick. I'm not happy with it. But it does look strong.
On the stats side of it, it's been across the big 4. It's been picked 10 times and a 6 and 4 across the split. So it's there. Like it's been picked more than Echo has in the big 4, for example, and more than like it's right near the next thing up from it. And I guess I'm not sorting by total picks. Let's sort by total picks. So like it's the same tier like Tristmid, for example. Tristmid's been picked 13 times. LeBlanc's been picked 16 times. Irelia's been picked 8 times. Echo's been picked 8 times. So it's in this like fringe of there's stuff going on here, but not much.
And that's an interesting thing that maybe a team could consider is like this is a best of 5. This is a true blue different environment where if you can pick up a game 1 win on something that you're demanding a ban, that opens up something like, okay, they banned Rise in the first game. Now they have to ban something like Mid Trist, Silas, Mid Nocturne, something that we completely memed on them with. And now that opens up some of our priority picks. Maybe teams can leverage that.
Mid Trist could be really good for them because that's a flex 280 and also like that has more lane prio. So like you can hard shove PoE in on these control mages if you ban Orianna. And really just like then build an advantage that way. So I like the sound of that as far as like that tier. LeBlanc I think is another like champ who's like a kind of actually in a like theoretically is a coin flip, but based off of how the interaction between mid and jungle works, I think is a losing option for them in this matchup. Where like because like LeBlanc really wins the game when you can gank and then like start applying kill pressure. And then and if you don't have that, it's more of like you end up in this weird scenario where you have to like put in damage on fights from the side around Dragon Pit in major team fights, and it's very hard to win in that spot.
Well, and just real quick before we hit a theoretical 100 Thieves dig matchup, which will be the last thing we talk about tonight. We talk about Trist as a flex. Say your red side first 2 picks, Trist Seraphine. How is that to build a team comp around?
You definitely want Gnar.
I don't know. Like
if that's just what you lock in and say, I have 2 champions that can flex 2 or 3 roles. This is just what I've got. Can you build a team around that just works?
So, yeah, but that 3rd pick is really important because then you don't don't lose your flex.
Well, you have to pick a jungle for the 3rd one because all the jungles are OP. So it would end up having to be like Olaf or Hecarim, I think, with that, and then try and like get prio that way, which could be good. now then the catch is like the other OPs. So I'm guessing you're banning Rel in this case.
Yep.
And then I don't know. It could be a solid core. Now it's very scaling is the thing, because that also you can win lane with some of those champs, but what you have to Seraphine doesn't actually Seraphine's meant to be a supportive lane, so it's that's the lane of the side of the map you're not going to play around if it's going to be mid or bot, and then Trist is a lane that wants to shove. So I don't know. It's very strange. I like the concept of this. Getting both through pick ban, and then locking them is pretty baller. I think that locking an OP support and a jungle first rotation is the problem. Where that's really what teams have been trying to do
right
can
now.
You put Seraphine in the AD role still, and then put an offensive
can
support still there? Yeah. So I mean,
but what do you lock for that offensive support? So people don't like playing poke supports in this meta. It's been very problematic. So I don't know if you if you lock Trist, Seraphine, and a jungler first rotation.
Hecarim's better. Olaf.
They'll if I was the enemy team, I would just double ban support at that point in time, and I'd be banning Rel, and I'd be banning Nautilus, or potentially Thresh, and that would be my follow up, and then I feel that's where you, well, it does, but then the enemy team will have support advantage where they'll have an engaged support and you won't. And that's where it gets dangerous. So you could, since you're EG, then lock Blitzcrank, but Blitzcrank Seraphine is not a winning lane. So then you're saying at that point, as soon as you lock the Blitzcrank, that Trist is bot and all of your flexes are solved.
Yep.
And
but you got the
so it's kind of awkward.
You have to have more answers after that if you're going to throw that as an opening gambit in this meta, which probably makes it just a bridge too far. It's just one of those things there aren't many flexes other than those two right now, really. And I think that they're they could play okay together, just generally in a team comp. It doesn't really matter what role, but it's probably too far to get them to play okay. It's not like when we had the Silases and Sets going 4 flexes and or a few years ago when you had GP that could go top and mid and stuff like that, where you just you could play with the matchups a little more. Where this the meta doesn't feel like it fits that. It's just something that's there in the background. I wonder if a team will try this just to mess with it.
So the kind of similar thing to do is watch when teams don't pick support first 3, and then see what they're doing with their team, because because support and jungle first 3 is the default answer, especially when you're on red side. So if they're not doing that, it's got to be something interesting where either they're going for a Felios Thresh or something, and then that's the enemy team specifically banning Thresh in 4-5, or it's they've got some other clever ruse going on that what we talked about here with some mega flex scenario. But yeah, it's definitely not the norm for how teams approach draft in this meta.
All right. 100 Thieves theoretically lose to C9. Steven believes in them. We don't, generally. I think it's pretty expected they're going to end up down here in losers. In this world, they would play against Dignitas. And I think that this is an interesting matchup. As we talk, I think I'm going to have to figure out which way I think this leans. Eric, do you want to start this off? How do you see this series going?
This is very coin flip, and I think it's largely based on emotions. So, kind of going back to my TSMTL series, I think whoever wins the game 1 is probably just going to 3-0 for how this one's going to go. It could be a baller best of 5, but it definitely seems very mental as far as edges go. And based off of what I have seen from these teams, especially in the second half of the split, I'm currently thinking, especially with Ryoma in mid lane, I'm currently thinking Dignitas has the edge. I think that solely go the X 100 Thieves mid laner is a better mid laner than Ryoma. Um, and like I like their like more pick ban variety. I think that they're a more diverse team as far as what they can bring to the Rift than 100 Thieves can. Hui has looked off recently as far as engage, and Afro has looked insane. I think the way you beat Dignitas, hard winning bot lane, and I haven't seen 100T really doing that with FBI and Hui right now, and like so it's just very interesting to me. Also, the timeline of Fake God beating Someday in a best of 5, I find to be quality.
Steven, you had thoughts.
Yeah, so Dig has not beat 100 Thieves yet, as far as I'm aware.
No.
And I think there's a distinct reason for that, because I believe they have beaten I believe they lost to both Demonte and Ryoma. And so like this is me just shilling hard, but like use both mid laners in a best of 5 and just win, cuz like Dig only loses to Cloud9, 100 or yeah. Like Dig only loses to Cloud9, 100 Thieves, and EG. And so just do the same thing.
I
don't
think
know.
it's really hard with Dig to say that they only lose to X teams, even though it's true,
Yeah.
because like their pick ban is so eclectic. Like
Yeah.
in their second loss, when it was and it was Demonte for both, it looks like, from what I can see.
Okay.
But
Fact
like,
checking.
but like they played Seraphine, Alistair bot lane in that game, and had this like all in on Dardoch Hecarim comp basically. And then we're like doing good until they weren't, which was basically tied to just some all-in crazy team fights from like Hui on Rel. So it's like they had like this huge like, and then they don't have like an ADC, and here's FBI on Tristana with like full build. Like this is just like a not an ideal scenario that I would want to be in as a team against like Rel Oriana with like a Tristana autoing you the entire time. I don't know. Like it's really hard for me to call like that, and that's a part of why like I think this is really like it'll be one team or the other, is because like if Dig has a good pick ban that they like can like win with, I don't think 100 Thieves can recover from getting stomped by like some like nonsense Kane game or whatever the hell it is. Whereas I think like on the flip side, I don't think Dig has the fortitude to come back in a best of 5. So it's like it's one way or the other to me. But like I am giving it to Dig here, just based off of like really like jungle pool variety, and then like the fact that I don't think Dig has the right or 100 Thieves has the right win conditions to really like shut the door. I could be off.
Like, I think 100 Thieves wins this, but I want to see Dig win this series, because I think that winning a playoff best of 5 after everything that Dardoch has been through, and if he can be a catalyst to his team doing that, as he's been to so much of their success this season, would be a narrative changing moment for him as a player.
Yep.
And like that, if we're talking just narrative based stuff, like that's what I want. It's the kind of like ending that this Dig somewhat surprise run has come from. It's been a lot of Afro and Dardoch have been like their two big catalyst players, as you'd expect from a support and jungle in a meta where support and jungle are really good. But it's the kind of thing that I want to see it, because I think that the level of growth that Dardoch has shown mentally in game, any way you want to slice it, has been notable and a big deal. And if he cements that by winning a playoff best of 5, I think that's a big deal going forward for his image and his mentality, no matter what happens the rest of the playoffs.
If you look at like these rosters that he's played on in his like, recovery window or whatever, after things, like all of these rosters, when he was on TSM, when he was on was it TL for a stint? I don't really remember the whole run.
Fox.
Echo Fox,
CLG.
like CLG, like they kept putting him into like these like supportive champion roles or like supporting other players, mainly because of meta, where it's like, it's you're playing Gragas Sejuani, like what are you gonna do? But like he's like when he had his most success starting out, and part of that time on Echo Fox was like he was on carries. And so like seeing a team willing to let him be the focal point of the map in a jungle like backing meta where as the jungler you should be getting resources, you should be where your team presses an advantage, like it really matters. I saw like one of the comments that like came up in Proving Grounds coverage, but that I've also been like really following with this is like League of Legends as a MOBA is in a spot where it's interesting, where you can't really deny experience from the enemy team easily. Like typically in League, like if you wanted to stop a laner from getting experience, you would have to bring 3 people to your lane to like hard shove them off of tower a la lane swap meta to like put them way behind. But then on the flip side of the map, you have that happening to you as well. So there was always this like certain amount of balance at a high level of play where you couldn't like really hammer home a difference as far as like just experience at minimum, even if gold could sway. And but current state jungle is different than that. So like now in jungle at pro play, you can actually get a 3-level lead on your jungler. And that's how you can like win a game. Is like if we have 5 players and you only have 4 at a high level of play, we're going to win. You can't overcome that. So it's really cool that he gets to play in this meta, which like highly incentivizes like snowballing your jungler, letting them take crab, letting them take top side jungle or bot side jungle, and then winning the game that way.
I also want to shout out Afro, who I thought was cooked like 9 months ago, just done. Support stats in the LCS. If we count out the assorted Senna games that are polluting the support sort on Games of Legends. 3rd highest kill participation among supports to 2nd highest after newbie. 2nd highest KDA after core. And just like the resurgence in play, he was one of the main reasons I thought this roster would not make playoffs, because I thought that his time might be ending or over, and has often made me sad as a longtime Afro fan. But the level of play he's shown this split has been remarkable and awesome to see.
And I chalk that up to professionalism. Like, this man has come from the support so easy to just very calm, cool, collected gentleman that like takes people under his wing. It's really wild to see the two juxtaposed to one another, and that's like he is ascended as a professional. Like, I am here, I'm a cornerstone piece of this team, I will be respected. Very, very cool to see.
So he's done that like on 100 Thieves and other teams, but then not had the same laning stats. And like, so like the big thing that's different to me about Afro this split is like, and it could be part of the meta, but like they have not lost lane. And like Afro laning with Cody-san, laning with like these other AD carries has been losing lane. And that was like the big problem that like was happening in his teams, is that like they would be losing bot lane pressure. And Dignitas hasn't been losing bot lane, is like one of the big selling points of this roster, is that they haven't like, is that like Fake God's the only person who's like who's potentially had some struggles in top lane, but he's also gotten like player of the week. So it's like pretty impressive how well they're doing in early game, And that's where you'd expect Afro to suffer, is like against like teams with younger like bot lane duos who then like can like pressure advantage and like start getting solo or double duo kills in lane. But that hasn't been happening. So part of me is worried that it's like the NA problem of like people aren't pressing for leads, and hence like he's getting away with some of this. But like it could be just like, you know, he's much more comfortable in this tank support meta where he can play make for his team, and then he's much more comfortable with how you play that 2v2, where you don't have to worry about getting poked out constantly by Kate Morgana BS or something like that. And you can walk into bushes toward his Alistair without getting popped, which was like his other problem from last split, was like he would have to lay down the vision for his team on Morgana or on some squishy champion and just get like one shot because damage is so high. So like it could be some meta stuff, but he has looked really solid, and like his prowess in team fights has been coming through.
I do want to say that like the man has not gotten to touch Rel at all. He's gotten one game on him, and the fact that he has that prowess on Alistar is paying off in dividends. So I think like it is part of meta, but more so the fact that he has an answer to not getting those meta picks because he's not allowed on him. Like his most played, I believe, is Alistar and Blitzcrank. And Blitzcrank's not a ton of games, granted, but he has the history to have this deeper pool of champions that maybe aren't considered meta, but a good answer when the meta's not on the table. I think that helps him a lot. Like 8 games on Alistar with a 75% win rate. Pretty good.
Pretty good.
And then Thresh and Blitzcrank, yeah. So
Yeah.
like hook champs, let him play make, and then roam too. Yeah.
And you are demanding that Rel is not in his hands. Because there's obviously a fear that if he gets another playmaking champion that is very strong, it's going to be worse.
I kind of feel it's almost like I do definitely think it's a huge boon. I almost view it from the flip side though, of like the enemy team like is now in a position where if they priority pick Rel, he's just going to pick Alistair and he wins that matchup. And like that's really upsetting. Is like because like that is one of the S tier picks in this meta. So like all of a sudden like that winning trade you can orchestrate in first 3 pick ban isn't a winning trade anymore, or it's much more counteracted because he's so good at the counter side of that. So like all of a sudden they have to think about like, even if it's not banning Rel because of fear of him, it's banning Rel because like us picking it isn't good for us. So like, so we have to do something here. Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll make picks for the losers bracket and matchups when we know the matchups. I know these might just be the matchups we see next week, but we're gonna hold off on actually making those picks until we know what they are. Just because I think that's probably good practice. And is the second round of winners bracket also happening next week? I thought I looked this up. It is not. It is happening the weekend after. So those we'll get to that later, because obviously like the assumed answer there is at C9TL, which will be fascinating to talk about and break down. But we'll get there when we get there. We'll make picks for it when we make picks for it. Even if all we do is make picks, that might be what we do. All right, we're at the end of the episode where we talk about random stuff and pick random stuff. Eric, what's one pick you want to see in the first weekend of the LCS playoffs this weekend?
Well, you know, I talked it down, but Mid Nocturne would be really exciting in one of these games, especially if somebody like denies the meta and builds like lethality. That would be very exciting for me.
You can do some fun stuff with that. Steven, what's one pick you want to see this weekend in the LCS playoffs?
I think it would be hilarious to have like Lux Tarek or a Sonateric come back for no reason, just for one game. Just.
You think TL's gonna lock that? Doublelift's not here anymore.
Like,
Tactical's not about that life.
You don't see Tactical Lux sounds like an amazing time. I
Also, I actually want to talk about that a little bit because I'm upset about the items suck for Tarek. Like, let's hit that real quick. Like, that's a problem with actually doing that. Is Tarek has no good builds right now. I rolled him in an ARAM this week, and like you can build Moonstone, which is probably like the right answer for a mythic, and then you're so squishy. You are so squishy. You just die.
Like
over and over. Forever.
Locket's the other answer, but it's like not the most tank stats. And if you build Locket as your mythic, then like your follow-up items, like it's kind of strange.
Dead man's.
But yeah, it's like, I mean, that's not far off, honestly. But like, so yeah, like I think Locket would be the go-to in like a pro level team comp, especially if you're playing like Lux Taric or Sona Taric, and your goal is just like drop shields on top of a Hecarim or an Olaf, and then like win a team fight. Like that's what makes sense to me, is like what you would go with in that comp.
That'd be so funny. Yeah, especially
the real question is, do you also lock top Karma with that comp?
If you have
where you have like the
yes,
top Moonstone Renewer, Flowstone Water Karma, and then it's like here's an Olaf.
Nope.
You'll never kill them. Have fun.
Nope, you don't. You lock Kale.
Oh,
You lock Kale. You'll never kill this Olaf. He's gonna be invulnerable for 6 seconds. Good luck.
Yeah.
Like, that's what you do. Unironically, you pick top Kale. She could survive. Like,
this is actually starting to sound too close to a TSM comp. Just as a warning.
I don't like it.
Like only it would be mid Kale. Yeah, it'd be like mid Kale for PoE, and then you have like Sona Taric or Lux Taric bot lane, and then Sword Art brings the Janna back. Who the hell knows? And then you have like this is very upsetting to me now. I'm gonna have to go
purge.
If you're trying to go all in on just make the unkillable Olaf Demon King, you take the Kale too and put it somewhere, because I trust pro teams to be able to time stacking those invulnerability windows right, because if you Kale ult a target and at the same time I think drop Taric ult on it, the Kale ult times out as the Taric ult's window shuts, so that those just stack up.
That's yucky.
Is it good? Can it survive lanes? Probably not. But you could do some really stupid stuff with an Olaf with that.
So, from a negative perspective, I would love to see Blabber pick Kindred into Tristana this weekend. That would make my week, because that is the worst possible matchup. Is locking Kindred into Tristana Alistar
bot lane.
Yeah, it's all right, you're out there now. Thanks for this aura of health and well-being. I'll take full advantage of this.
Lock Kindred. See, now you made me get to talk about a thing. You know what's great into Kindred in all the ways? Poppy.
Yep.
You don't get to jump around. I'm gonna knock you out your ult.
How is Poppy into Renekton? Is that
it's doable?
Okay.
Yeah. You still die.
You hit one of his dashes and he's just screwed. It's
I think
very
that actually
doable.
is.
I don't think she's that far from meta. I'd love to see somebody pick her,
especially with all this Gragas top and that nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
Poppy actually seems pretty good.
Yeah, she is unironically my pick, and not just because she's my main champion. There's enough going around that she's good into. Her lane's iffy, but you need obviously once you get to Sunfire, or if you go Frostfang, your wave clear's fine. It matches up fine. Her Q's wave clear is fine.
I think the bigger
if you make it to 1100 and get back and get the Bomby Cinder, you will not have problems getting shoved in. You're really hard to dive.
I think the bigger issue is that Poppy into Udyr or Lilia sounds unfun to me.
Yeah, like
because like they just
it's
run
the
They'll just
jungle
come
stuff
back.
is more of a problem, but
Yeah.
you also like you get to go into the jungle against those things, and you know where Poppy's really fun to play in the jungle because
Yeah.
there's
Jungle
lots of
Poppy's
walls.
fun.
Like if you engage a 2v2 in your jungle or in enemy jungle with a Poppy with you, oh, I get a free wall stun anywhere I want. Okay.
Yeah.
Easy.
That seems pretty good. I still wouldn't like to like team fighting against like an Udyr as a Poppy sounds miserable because it's like your job should be to like peel for your your squishies, and then Udyr just like runs in a circle around you and like in like river or some nonsense and just like autos all of your team members as you're like chasing him in slow motion, and it's like
Like
that's
Udyr and
that's
Olaf are
very
both
sad.
very annoying to deal with because you can't do
Yeah.
anything to an Olaf.
Yeah. And like Lilia is like the same thing, only she's going Eep the entire time.
Yep.
Yeah. It's like
No, like it's the other reason you pick Poppy in top lane is you try to bait out NA Jace because that's what you should pick into the Poppy, but people are bad at it at pro level. Like you should pick Jace in the Poppy. It's a really miserable matchup to play, but NA Jace. So pick Poppy. That's my pick Poppy segment. That my other random note before we get to what we've been playing and end. Check the chat if you two haven't for my favorite branding activation that I've seen from our friends in Korea. McDonald's is an official sponsor of the LCK, and you can get special value meals at Korean McDonald's and have a chance to get legend role cards of each of the 5 roles featuring players from the history and present of the LCK, and you can also get free skins and stuff.
Let's just go. We gotta get some McDonald's.
I just bring that here. Like even if you give me Bjergsen on a little card in my meal, give me a free skin for my McD's. Let's go.
You know those Pokemon cards? We need some League of Legends historical pros.
I'm curious how well the Buffalo Wild Wings stuff did during the pandemic. Like how many people bought like wing meals from like that deal?
I confirmed that I ordered them like 3 or 4 times and enjoyed my delicious free stuff.
Yeah. So
I would have done it more, B-dubs, if my local B-dubs didn't turn off online ordering all the time, you jerks.
Rip. But
Yeah, no,
though.
I very much endorse that strategy with my dollars. Like, please do give me reasons to go to a restaurant I already like eating at and get free stuff for doing it. Same with, like, not to shill for TL a little bit, but boy, do I take advantage of every time they have a Jersey Mike special.
Yeah.
Every single time. I check Steve's feed for that every week. God, J Mike's. I had that for lunch today. It was delicious. Steven, have you been playing any games? And if you've been playing games, what have you been playing?
I actually started playing some ranked again, and I can only play Malphite. My boomer hands have kicked in full force, and everything else just doesn't feel good. So, in honor of St. Patrick's Day, there's only the Shamrock Shake.
Full Shamrock, I respect it. Eric, what have you been playing, and is it just Tristana?
It's just Tristana. That's it.
She's really good right now.
Yeah.
I remember when Jinx was really good last year, and I played a ton of Jinx because she was really good.
A moon ago.
What's my favorite thing I played in an ARAM lately? Like, obviously Poppy, because she's just good at stuff. It's great. But it was a support, and I don't remember what. We did some hilarious stuff. I actually had the game I played Taric. We had the Kale Taric combo in the game, and a Yi. We were just terrible at executing it, so we died a whole bunch. It's like, yeah, just make the Yi invulnerable for 6 seconds, and he has Duskblade, so you can't see him, and he's invulnerable. Good luck.
That's tilting.
I'm mad already. I'm upset. That's illegal.
Unfortunately, our Kale's really bad at doing her ult on priority targets at the right time. And I died before I could cast my ult a lot, because I was so squishy. It made me sad. So give the Oh, what's the class of supports that Tarek and Braum are? Give those an item that is good for them. Braum's item also kind of sucks. Yeah, there. That's my soapbox. Give Tarek and Braum love, please.
Speaking of giving love, you should buy merchandise from the Funky store. We have shirts. They're funky and they're great and they feel good. I've been wearing mine quite a bit and it still looks awesome. You should buy it from the Funky store, funky.store. You should do that.
Eric, do you have anything to plug?
No.
Anyway, if you randomly enjoy this, yeah, buy our stuff.
Like the page, subscribe, tell your friends.
Follow me on Twitter. If you follow me on Twitter, the I think pinned tweet on my Twitter page is a link to my baby registry. Buy me stuff. Shameless plug.
There you go. Easy.
I'm having a kid in 7 weeks, and I need more stuff. Buy us stuff.
Love it.
So there you have it. We're out for the week. We will be back 1 week from today instead of our usual 2 to talk about the LEC and why Rogue's going to win it all. There's my teaser.
Got him.
It's happening. G2's going to lose.
This is going to be so spicy when we get to next week. Oh boy, so much spice.
Just got to give a little bit of a tease to give people what they want. So we'll be back next week, talk about the LAC, however it goes, and we'll probably touch a little bit on the matchups in the losers bracket for NA, because that'll be set in the first weekend of games. Will be done in the mid-season showdown. Woo! So that's about it. This has been Reaction Time. Follow the socials, check the link tree, buy the merch, do the thing. We'll see you next week.